Premier League predictions time. Now, I am going to do another one of these when the window shuts, because in the last couple of weeks of this window and in the next two, we are going to see so much change. We've still got talk of Eze, there's still talk of Isak on the move, there's still talk of Baleba on the move, and Rodrigo being mentioned, tipping to leave Real Madrid. So a lot can change, and that can definitely have a sway on the way things go. But I'm looking at things as things stand right now, where I'm at. And I wanted to do a prediction table. I wanted to do that. I think I did it last year as well. A lot of people like this. So here goes. I'm going to go top last. So I'm going to go bottom to top, 20th to first. And in 20th place, I've put Burnley. Look, I think Scott Parker does a great job getting Premier League clubs into Premier League positions. However, the Championship, he tends to go back down to. So I'm not going to lie. I don't think Burnley have done enough, and I've not seen enough to suggest that they've got any chance of 100% staying up. I think they could be in trouble. Look, Scott Parker's a very good Championship manager. If I was a team that was in the Championship, I would want him as my manager. But when you get to the Premier League, he's yet to prove that he can be the guy to keep them up. So I think Scott Parker and Burnley will be going back down. I've put them in 20th. In 19th, I've gone for a team that I think will struggle, and I've gone for Brentford. I hope I'm wrong. I like Brentford. I like what they've represented in the last few years. But the reason I feel they've been so successful is their manager, Thomas Frank, who's now left, Vissa, who looks like he's going, and Brian Mbeumo. Those two scored all of their goals. Now, they've always had good attack, Brentford, and had solid defence, which is why they've put themselves to where they are. I think they've got a good signing in Kelleher, and I think their defence is pretty much unchanged, unless, of course, they do sell anyone. So they might be quite difficult to beat in games, but I just don't know that Kieran Andrews is the guy to take them to the next level. I just don't think he is. And I think he could be one of the first managers sacked. I think Brentford are going to struggle, and I don't see where the goals are coming from. So I've got them going down again this season in 18th. In 17th place, this was a real toss-up for me between two. I've gone for Sunderland to go down. Now, the reason I've done that is because I just think that they brought in way too many players, and I think it's going to take them too long to gel. I know the Stadium of Light's difficult, and it's a hard place to go, but Sunderland, we've got to remember, went up in the playoffs. Doesn't mean that they're worse than the other two, because I've put Burnley below them. But I think Sunderland have strengthened, but have they strengthened enough for Premier League quality? I'm not so sure that they have. And I just think that it's a flip between them and Leeds. And I think Ellen Road is going to be a harder place to go than the Stadium of Light. I just do. So I've gone for Sunderland to go down. And that could be the one that's a huge question mark. Of course, we've got to see the season play out. They might be phenomenal. I hope they are. I want to see underdogs do well. Let me make that clear. I don't want these teams to go down. You know the teams I picked to go down, but you've got to be realistic. So I've gone for Sunderland in 17th place. Staying up and only just, of course, I've gone for Leeds. Now, I think Ellen Road is a real tough place to go. I think Daniel Farker is being tipped to go straight back down like he did with Norwich. But from what I'm understanding from some of the Leeds fans I speak to, this is a different Daniel Farker, a different Leeds. And they've made some good signings. I think that they have got the know-how to stay up. They've done it before. And I just fancy them more than the other teams, if I'm honest. I think they look more together, more set up, better so than some of the others. I just don't think Leeds have got the squad, though, to go further than that. I think they're going to be floating around relegation. In 16th, I've gone for West Ham. I just don't think they've done anywhere near enough. I look at the transfer window itself. I think Callum Wilson, if he's fit, is okay. Kyle Walker-Peters, these are players that were good 5-6 years ago, not players that are good right now. I think West Ham are seriously lacking midfielders. And I think that they're relying too much on Jared Bowen. Losing Kudus is a massive blow for them. Paqueta needs a good season if he stays. And I just don't think that they've done enough other than maybe the goalkeeper, who's a half-decent signing from Leicester. I just don't think it's enough. And I think Graham Potter is on fraud watch, I've got to be honest. So, yeah, I've put West Ham down in 16th. In 15th, I didn't know where to go with this one, because I'm not quite sure on how much I rate this manager. But the way they ended the season, I've put Wolves in 15th. I just think that they've got enough quality in their side. Having lost Ait-Nouri and Cunha, it could make me have egg on my face by saying that. But I just think they looked well drilled and well organised. And I think when you look at the scenario of Wolves, you don't quite know what you're going to get. But that also works in a favour for them. Sometimes they'll beat a crazy team like a Man City or even an Arsenal, and you'll think, where's that come from? And then they'll go and lose to a Sunderland or a Leeds. I just think Wolves are going to be that team this season. Very inconsistent, but not inconsistent enough to be flirting too much with relegation. But I think they'll be down there. Look, in next place, I've gone with Bournemouth. I just don't know what I'm going to get with this team. They've lost all of their defence, and I'm a big fan of their coach, Iriola. I think he's an excellent manager. I really do. I think he's been fantastic. But I just don't think I've seen enough of the incomings to impress me. And I think that Bournemouth will be struggling towards the bottom half of the table this season as opposed to floating around the top. And I think, look, I could be absolutely wrong here. I could be looking at Iriola thinking, wow, he's lost pretty much the whole of his backline and he's still superb. You can't lose Kirkes, Howson, and of course Sabani and still believe that you're good enough to get towards European football. And that's my problem with Bournemouth. I'm just looking who else I put there. Okay, so 14th Bournemouth and then 13th I've gone for Fulham. Again, like Bournemouth, not too sure what I'm going to get, but I like some of the players they're linked with. And I just think Marco Silva puts them to that kind of stability level. I can't have Fulham dropping off because I just don't think Silva's bad enough. And I don't think they've particularly lost anyone huge. I think that they've kept the majority of their squad. And I sometimes think that's good to keep togetherness when you're in a kind of mid-table club. Um, so I've gone for Fulham because I don't see them massively improving, but I don't see them massively regressing either. I think they're in desperate need of a striker. I know Muniz is looking like he could be off to Leeds or somewhere. They definitely need to upgrade that. I don't know if they take the championship striker. I don't know if they go and try and find somebody who's a squad player that scores goals. But for me, Fulham right now are going to be in and around the same sort of place. In 12th place, I've gone for Palace. Look, Crystal Palace are going to potentially lose Eze. They're going to potentially lose Gehi. If they weren't losing those two players, I actually would put them higher because I've been very impressed with the way that Glasner has taken this side to the next level. He's won them a trophy. He's just won the Community Shield. It looks to me like he's got a little bit of winning mentality installed in this Palace side. And Gehi and Eze, if they were to stay, I think Palace could do something towards European football. I really do think that they could push towards that Conference League, but I just don't think they will, losing two huge players like that. It's a massive hole at the back. He's been phenomenal for them. And Eze, I think, is their best player. And it looks like Arsenal and both Spurs are interested in him. So it looks like he could be off. So I've got Palace in 12th, which, to be fair, is in and around where they usually finish. In 11th place, I've gone for a team that I think are going to surprise. They're normally flirting with relegation. They've got a new manager now in David Moyes and a new stadium that I think both are going to complement each other. And Everton are my tip for a kind of overachievers this season. Now, I know people might look at 11th and think, how's that overachieving? Well, it kind of is when you're looking at Sean Dyche's Everton flirting with relegation. I do feel like Everton have made some excellent signings. Jack Grealish, Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. I think they've got Tieno Barry. They're looking at Tyler Dibbling. And defensively, they're good. They're solid. You know, they've got this Moroccan left back now with Mikalenko. They've obviously still got the likes of Patterson at right back. At defensively, they're good with Tarkowski and, of course, with Branthwaite. I do think that Pickford's a very consistent goalkeeper for Everton, has been one of their best players for the last couple of years. So I think they're going to be hard to beat. I think they'll keep clean sheets. I think they'll make it tough. Maybe their midfielder, they could do with a holding midfielder or one that's got a little bit more athleticism than Ghana Gay, who's, I think, 35. But I do believe that they're going to have a very good season. I think Njai is an excellent signing. They've still got Dwight McNeil. Look, I've got to be real. I think Everton will do well this season under David Moyes. So I've got them in 11th. In 10th place, I have gone for Nottingham Forest. I really don't know where to go with this one. They're very hard to beat. They're very good defensively. They don't concede many goals. And that's why I've kept them just in the top half. I think Nuno has a system once implemented that's difficult to beat. And that's why I think they're going to be a hard team to beat this season. Still, I just don't think they'll get the amount of wins that they did last season, which propelled them towards European football. And of course, they just missed out. They are going to be playing Europa League, which I actually don't think is amazing for them. I don't think they have the squad depth for a Europa League spot. But I do say that they'll be a hard team to beat and they'll still be floating around the top half. I don't know what the relationship is like with Nuno and Marinakis. Some say it's a bit sour. I don't know if that's true. Maybe he could be out the door. If he is to go, I do think that changes things for Forest in a bad way because I think Nuno keeps them competitive, at least against some of the big sides. And I think Forest will be hard to beat for the big sides with that low block, with that system that can get you on the counter. I do think that Forest will be difficult to beat still. So I've got them in 10th. In ninth place, I've gone for Brighton. Brighton are a team that, even though they lose players, they just replace them. If they were to lose Baleba, people might say they'll struggle, but I just don't think they will. They've got the new guy, I can't remember his name. They're saying he's the young N'Golo Kante coming through. They just have a conveyor belt of players. And Brighton, even losing João Pedro, they've still got goals up top. We still know what they're going to be, and that's a threat. They've still kept Matoma. They've still kept the likes of Danny Welbeck, who did really good last season scoring goals. They've still got Minter, who's a very good player. And in midfield, they've got players who I think can go to the next level as well. So I just don't see Brighton dropping off. I think they're going to be a team with their manager that's very hard to beat and that will remain competitive. So I've put Brighton in ninth place. In eighth place, I've gone for Manchester United. Now, I have no idea if Ruben Amorim is going to last past October, but he has to get it right with these players, because if they are to bring in Baleba and they've got Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko on top of that, they are going to score goals. And defensively, I think Manchester United are pretty much sound. Lenny Yoro, I rate. Lisandro Martinez is a good player that can come in back from his injury. De Ligt, they've got with that wealth of experience. They've still got players to back them up as well. Harry Maguire's still there. Mazraoui's still there. Obviously, they've got these wing backs now, which I think will be interested in Patrick Dorgu and Diallo. And then in their midfield, there's only really Bruno dropping into that deeper role that I have a huge issue with, because I think they've still got the quality of engine in Baleba, who I think would potentially, if they get him, improve Bruno Fernandes. And that front three is going to score goals. Cunha did for Wolves. Brentford did score goals with Mbeumo. And Sesko scored 13 in the Bundesliga for Leipzig. So you'd like to think the three of them can score goals. Now, I hope to God Sesko is a flop. Mbeumo can't find his feet and Cunha can't take the transition from Wolves to United, but I just don't think that's the case. So I think Manchester United, albeit they won't be happy with this position, I think they will be happy in comparison to where they were last season, which is why I've put them in eighth place. In seventh, this was a difficult one. It really was a toss-up between two clubs. I just don't think this football club have done enough this season, defensively or in attack, to give them any chance of going and competing in the Champions League spots. And that, I have gone for Aston Villa. I think Ollie Watkins is a good player still. Morgan Rogers is by far their best player, in my opinion. I just don't know that Pau Torres is the right guy at the back there alongside Konza. I think he's the only defender I rate at Aston Villa. I don't know what's happening with the goalkeeping situation. Emi Martinez was touted with a move. And I don't think they've replaced Rashford or Asensio yet. So I don't know that Aston Villa are going to be as comfortable as what people are making out. Now, I do think they can go for a run in the Europa League, and I think they should put all of their eggs in going for a cup competition this season, because I think they will qualify for Europe in some form. I've got them obviously in the Conference League positions, but I do think they've got more chance of going all out for that. So let's see what happens with Aston Villa. In sixth place, I hate saying this because I'm an Arsenal fan, but I have gone with Tottenham. Now, people might think that's crazy and way too high because of where they come last season. That, for me, was an anomaly. There is absolutely no way Spurs were 17th last season with the team they've got. Ange Postecoglou was a mess. He only had one way of playing. Thomas Frank is a well-drilled, tactically good coach, and I think he will make them hard to beat. I don't think Tottenham are going to go on this mad run and start winning. I think that they've got a couple of good signings, and I still think with their injuries, they've got a couple of players coming back, which is really going to help them. The likes of Kulusevski, James Maddison, these type of players, when they do get back into the mix, I do think that they've got a couple of potentials to do quite well. They're still linked with good players as well. They're looking at attackers. I think their defense is pretty good when it's all fit. Midfield, they've brought in Paulinho, who I think is a very good player, by the way. Maybe not so good off the ball, but on the ball, but certainly off of it. They've still got Bissouma, Sarr. So I think they've got some good players. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near the bottom half of the table. And because I rate Thomas Frank so highly, I actually do think that they've got a couple of good signings, Kudus being one of them. I think they're going to get European football. And I hope I'm wrong, of course. So I've gone for Tottenham in sixth. In fifth place, I've gone for Newcastle. Now, that is for me, even if they do get rid of Alexander Isak and bring in Vissa, which looks like it's potentially going to happen. Now, I do think Newcastle have still got a brilliant side. I think Eddie Howe is a brilliant manager. I still think the fans will get behind them more than ever this season. I think with what the goings on at board and ownership level has been a disgrace at Newcastle. And I still feel that they've got a good enough side. Now, people think without Isak, they're going to come 12th or 13th. It's rubbish. It really is. Isak's a very good player. In fact, he's a phenomenal talent. However, Vissel will score goals if he comes in at Newcastle. They've brought in a couple of players, a centre-half as well, Elanga, who I think will do well with them. They've still got Barnes. They've still got Gordon. They've still got Bruno Tonali and Joe Linton. And defensively, if Sven Botman can stay fit next to their centre-half they've bought, they might have good defence as well. So I think they've got two of the better fullbacks in the league in Livramento and Lewis Hall. And they brought in Aaron Ramsdale, who people laugh at, but it's actually a good goalkeeper. So I don't think Newcastle are going to have this disaster of a season. They've had a disaster of a window, but I still have them in fifth. I just don't think there's a there's any teams around them that are better than what the side that they've got. So I have to put them in fifth. In fourth place, I've gone for Chelsea. Now, this could change because Chelsea, I do actually genuinely believe, can go for the title this season. And my prediction is for them to be top of the league in the first 6 games. My problem is with Chelsea, I don't rate them defensively or in goal. Now, defensive as a unit last season, they were pretty good. I think they had the first best defense in the league. The third best, should I say. However, with the centre-half pairing now being questionable in terms of injuries for Fofana and Colwill, I don't think Chalobah and Tosin are good enough to go for a title. I don't think Robert Sanchez in goal is good enough to go for a title. You add Donnarumma and a couple of centre-halves like a Diomande and Mark Guehi, Chelsea are ready. And I mean seriously ready. Garnacho looks like he's coming in potentially as well. Chelsea should be ready to go for the title if that happens. But without that, I have my doubts. So I have them in a Champions League spot comfortably in fourth. In third place, it's a flip of a coin. And I've gone with my kind of heart here over my head because I've gone for Manchester City in third. Now, I haven't just gone with that as a kind of rash decision. I do still have question marks over Manchester City. I actually think there's a lot of question marks in each department. Is Ederson still up to it? Are they good enough defensively? Who's going to play at right back? In midfield, if Rodri is out, what does that now look like? I think Reinders is wonderful. Is Cherky going to be hit and miss? Is he going to be 50-50? Or is he going to be absolutely superb like a David Silva? Marmoush, I believe, will probably be Manchester City's best player this coming season. I've been very, very impressed with him. Is that going to continue? Where's Foden going to play? And is he going to have a stinker again? And is Haaland going to score the goals that he did when they won the treble? Or is he going to get 15, 16? We just don't know with Manchester City. And I think that although I don't doubt Pep ever, I'm just not quite sure that he's got it right in the last few months. So I think for me, I'm just going to go with Manchester City in third place. In second, you've guessed it. Second again, LA, they all sing. I've gone with Arsenal. I don't think we've done enough yet to close the gap. And the gap was quite big last season. Now, I appreciate we've got injury problems last year. This season, there's no more excuses. We've got Victor Gyökeres. Zubamendi's been brought in. Madueke's come in as backup, as has Mosquera, Norgard, and Kepa. Yes, we're linked with Eze, and there's a rumour about a left winger. If that happens, maybe I'll change my opinion. But right now, it's second place because of one thing and one thing only. I don't think the manager can get us across the line. I've just got to be honest. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love Arteta to win a treble. I'd love him to prove me and many others wrong. I just don't think it's going to happen. That, of course, leads the champions, and I do think they will retain it. It is, of course, Liverpool. Now, I think that back-to-back is something Liverpool have not done in the Premier League era. I do think they're going to do it this season. I do think they're going to end up with Isak and Guehi, and I think that will be a wrap. I saw them against Crystal Palace. I wasn't massively impressed, but I didn't think they looked fit, and I thought some of their players looked off. Van Dijk, Salah, even Alexis McAllister wasn't himself, missed his penalty. He never misses penalties either. And then, of course, Szoboszlai, who I think is always running around, he didn't even look 100% fit. So I think for me, Ekitike's goal was cold. I've got to be honest. That was an absolute class attempt and brilliant strike and a good goal. And defensively, I think at the moment they've got a question mark, but Guehi coming in would stop that. I think the question mark of Isak and their attack, I think would be stopped if they got that. I do think they could be left a little bit short. I think Isak's got to come in alongside somebody else because at the moment they've only got Salah, Gakpo and Ekitike. They're looking at getting rid of Harvey Elliott. They've sold Nunez and, of course, Diaz. And, of course, there was a tragic event to Diogo Jota, rest in peace. So I don't think they're good enough in attack at the moment. And if they were to lose a Salah like they are going to in the African Cup of Nations, maybe that's how teams can catch up with them. But I just don't see it at the moment. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult season for everyone trying to catch up Liverpool. But I do think it will be closer. And I do think there could be 3, maybe even 4 teams that go for that title race. So look, that's my final Premier League predictions table. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I think the manager of the year, I do think it will be Arne Slot again. I just don't see how they don't win more than one trophy if they do get the signings of Guehi and Alexander Isak. My player of the season, I have to go with Mo Salah. The guy has been absolutely phenomenal, and it will be silly off the back of this season to not go with him. The top goal scorer, I'm going to go with Erling Haaland. I just think Haaland is the guy that I always believe is going to score goals for Manchester City, whether they're winning stuff or not. So I have to go with Haaland. And the young player of the season, it might surprise people, but I'm going to be biased and I'm going to go for Ethan Nwaneri. I do think he'll play more minutes. I do think he'll get a game time. And I do think that he could light up the Premier League with his substitute appearances and have a bit of a Miles Lewis-Skelly season. That's my prediction. So look, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are in relation to the Premier League prediction tables. Premier League winners, I've gone Liverpool. I do think the Champions League winners will be PSG. I don't think anyone's beating them in terms of how well they're playing. They look knackered at the moment, which is why Chelsea and I think Spurs could even give them a game because they need a rest. But for me, PSG, I think will win the Champions League. The FA Cup, I'm going to go for Arsenal because it's our cup. We have to win a trophy. And I think we have to take that one seriously. The League Cup, I'm going to go Chelsea. I think they need to win a domestic cup also. The Europa League, I'm going to go for Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa will have a great chance under Unai Emery. And the Conference League, I'm going to go for Crystal Palace because I think that now they're in that, they've got a better chance of winning that than they have the Europa League. That's my predictions, people. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Hit like, subscribe, follow Match Bingo up there, QR code, and we'll see you on the next one. Big up.